everybody, welcome back to Nerd News Today. I'm Matthew, and on today's video we're taking a look at the third in the series of Diamond Select's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles statue series. Previously on this channel we took a look at Leonardo, who was the first one, followed by Raphael, and today we're up to number 3, and that is none other than the party dude himself. Today we've got Diamond Select's version of Michelangelo. The turtle clad in orange, Mikey is the party dude as we mentioned, but he's also a serious butt kicker when he wants to be. You know, I think all of them had great personality, but I feel like Michelangelo here, he's got something a little bit more than the other ones had. Let's just leave it at that, and I think you'll see what I mean once we open him up. But first things first, let's talk about this packaging. And like all the other Diamond Select statues out there, it's pretty much the same thing. You've got a big window on the front, another window on the side, and the other side as well. So left and right has windows, and as always, the Diamond Select Classic sunroof. And also, like the other pieces we've seen so far, there's a lot of personality in the box art as well. And it's all different, you know, which is really cool, because I feel like these statues kind of pull from the many different parts of Ninja Turtle continuity, and it's evident by this box art. For example, you've got this image here on this corner of Mikey, and across from that is a version that kind of seems like it's almost maybe the mid-2000s or early 2000s version of the Turtles. Whereas if you turn it to this side, now I've got cartoon Turtles. And then you turn it again to that last side that we've got over here. And again, just different images. So they're really pulling from a lot of different things here, and that's really cool. The back of the packaging is, of course, like all the others as well. Black and white background with a cityscape, a nice image of our statue in action, and a simple, short but sweet paragraph about who Michelangelo is. I don't have a ton to say about it other than it's exactly what I was hoping for in the write-up. Now, what is of course the most important information is the people who made this, and this was designed by David Forrest of Kinetic Underground and sculpted by Sandro Luis Sampao. So that's everything you need to know about the box for Michelangelo, so without further ado, let's get this turtle out of the packaging and take a closer look at him from all angles. And here is our party dude, Michelangelo, out of the box and on display. The immediate reaction I have seeing this piece is just thinking about how different he is compared to the other two statues I reviewed on this channel already, and you know what? That's a good thing. Every single statue in this lineup has had a personality of its own, and you can immediately tell who the piece is meant to represent, even if you couldn't see the color of their bandana. Michelangelo isn't just swinging into action to kick some Foot Clan butt, he's having a good time doing it. Mikey's face is a great representation of this character, but also still done in a gritty, realistic way just like his brothers. He looks more cheerful than Raph and Leo, of course, but he is still clearly in battle. He's not angry or as serious as the others, but he's digging in and ready to fight. I love the body language and pose of this piece, adding some verticality in this case compared to the previous statues. Even then, he still has a similar musculature, and in case you're wondering, once again, yes indeed, his green is slightly different from his brothers. I really enjoy the way these characters are sculpted, and it's a great translation from cartoon and comics into something that feels more realistic. We can't go too far without discussing the turtle shell on his back and the hard covering on the front of his body either. They're all well painted in texture, helping to separate those elements from the rest of his body. And a reminder that that skin is also kind of textured too. It's not flat like you would see on a Diamond Select PVC figure diorama piece with a human character. Those are always very, very smooth, but in the case of our turtles, they have had a little bit more of a rougher texture to make them feel a little bit more reptilian or amphibian or whatever the heck turtles are. But basically, not mammalian. There's a fancy SAT word for you. Michelangelo's downward kicking pose is really interesting, and we're going to come back to that a little bit more in detail later because it ties into something else you're seeing here right now. But it's very dynamic compared to his brothers, who, to be quite fair, were also dynamic. But this one here has a very different energy compared to Raphael and Leonardo. And that kind of energy is almost an enthusiasm that you're seeing throughout this piece here that ties into the facial expression. It's really interconnected very nicely here. Now, besides this downward kicking pose being very cool, I do want to come back to that skin texture I just talked about a little bit earlier and talk about some of the other texture on this piece too, because that's really what I think makes this piece come together. And that leads us into all of the tiny details on him, ranging from the pouches and small things on his sash, the elbow and knee pads, the wrap on his wrists and his ankles, and even that belt going across his waist, which, yes, has the letter M on the buckle. There are so many cool things to discover each time you look at him, and it's easy to get lost while you're doing that. The paint job is clean across the board for him too. You won't find an ounce of slop anywhere, and there's plenty of shading and highlights to make this feel like a much more expensive piece. Now, just like his brothers as well, Michelangelo is similarly well toned, although he does look to be a little bit leaner than his bros. Not to say that he's smaller, but, you know, Raphael especially is a little bit more bulky. I think Leo is the same. and it seems that Mikey is meant to look a little bit smaller compared to those two guys. But again, he still has the same rippling muscles that you're going to see across the board. I mean, every time I look at this guy's pectorals, I'm just like, how the heck does a turtle get a chest like that? I want to know what his routine is. Now let's talk some weaponry here, and Michelangelo has his signature nunchucks, and to be quite honest, that was one thing I was very curious about. I know that some fans might complain about the fact that they are plastic nunchucks and they're not on metal chains. And we've seen metal chains now at some of the different action figures that have come out, but that's kind of a different case. Besides raising the price of this item potentially, it wouldn't be too feasible to do something like that in statue form. A statue, unlike an action figure, needs to be a frozen moment in time. And if you're going to have something metal hanging off it, they're just going to be drooping the entire time or just occasionally wobbling, and I think that would really take away from the energy of this piece. You're welcome to disagree if you like, but really think about it. Just imagine a droopy, limp nunchuck just kind of wobbling back and forth. That's kind of lame compared to what Leonardo and Raphael have with their weapons drawn. I think the nunchucks look perfect as is, and they have a great sense of energy to them. And I'm not going to lie here and say that nunchucks are an easy thing to add to a sculpture because they're not. But the art team behind this did a fine job of showing these weapons in action, and frankly, I don't know how anyone could have done it any differently. Now here's a big key difference. Unlike our previous two characters, Mikey is on wheels for his pose. He's doing some sick tricks on his skateboard, which looks great, honestly. And in case you're wondering, yes, there actually is a rougher texture on the top side of that board. So it's not just a smooth piece of plastic. This actually looks like the real deal, and it feels like it too. The detail is the same here as it is with every other tiny little thing on the statue, and that's very exciting to see. Even the wheels on the back of this skateboard has a little screw to put into them. It's just wild how much detail there actually is on this thing. Really, this is one of those cases where I'd say you gotta see it to believe it, but hey, you're seeing it right now. Tell me you're not blown away by this. Mikey's base is similar to his bros, which is once again that New York City rooftop setting. There's a knockdown chimney, which this turtle is using to ride his board on, and other than that, it's a fairly plain thing in terms of Easter eggs, but it still has lots of little details. With so much else going on in the piece, this space is fine as it is, and it can afford to be a little bit more basic than the others. Now, as far as storytelling goes, we saw at the previous statues that they had parts of mousers and such that were scattered across their displays. In this case, again, we don't have that, but really that's because we want the centerpiece of the attention to be Michelangelo and his skateboard. So personally, it doesn't bother me that that part of it is missing. It does make the story perhaps a little bit less complete in this regard, of the story of what these statues are doing, but I don't really think it pulls me out that much, especially when we get to one other key feature we're about to come over to. But first, let me just mention that overall, I think that Michelangelo is another great addition to Diamond's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle line. He is loaded with the same detail you'd expect, and I feel like they really raised the bar with these turtles for all their PVC figure dioramas. I hope that Diamond's other statues, such as their Lord of the Rings series and their Matrix line, can rise up to the occasion along with these, because really, these are phenomenal pieces, and if you're not really a statue collector, I feel like this is going to be a great entry point to get you started. Now, as I mentioned in previous videos, and I just alluded to a few moments earlier, if you collect all four turtles, you can display them together to complete the story. The bases interconnect essentially since they all have flat backings, allowing you to put them side by side to create the ultimate TMNT figure diorama. Due to the limitations of the space I film in, I wasn't able to set them up the way it was intended with all three together, but you can still see how these guys look next to each other, and this is a pretty stunning trio. I'm counting down the days until I can get them all and set them up the way they were intended to be. And I'm truly anticipating how awesome that display is gonna look. Now, speaking of, if you want to pick up this statue for yourself and maybe get all four of them once that happens, check out our affiliate links in the description of this video below. If you pick up this statue using any of those links or any other items, it helps support this YouTube channel at no extra cost to you. And hey, while you're hanging out down there, why don't you leave a comment to let me know what you think about this Michelangelo piece? So that's our look at Diamond Select's TMNT Michelangelo statue. He is the third of four to complete the set, and you know what that means. We're almost done here, and spoilers, well, not really. I think you can figure out who's going to be in the next one. Here's a hint, he does machines. What that means, I'll let your dirty mind figure that out for yourself. But until then, I'm Matthew. This has been Nerd News Today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys here next time. Bossa Nova.